What unfolds when a CEO steps into his own store incognito and encounters an employee in tears? Michael Carter had crafted his enterprise from the very foundation. A humble beginning with a single store has blossomed into a thriving chain of 12 locations spanning 3 states. Yet achievement arrived with separation. He hadn't set foot in any of his establishments for years. He depended on district managers, reports, and sales figures to assess the operational status. Recently, however, there was an unsettling feeling in the air. There was a noticeable rise in customer complaints, a significant turnover rate, and reviews highlighted unprofessional service and inadequate management. Annoyed by the ambiguous answers from higher-ups, Michael resolved to investigate on his own. He planned to assume the role of a fresh recruit at one of his establishments, a site he had yet to explore himself. A skilled disguise artist assisted him in altering his signature look. His salt and pepper hair was dyed brown. His beard was shaved off, and he donned thick glasses. Clad in a casual polo and jeans, he resembled just another individual on the hunt for employment. No one at the store had ever encountered him face to face, so there was no chance of being identified. As he crossed the threshold, an unsettling sensation washed over him. The air was thick with tension. Workers hurried past, deliberately steering clear of the man at the front counter, likely the manager. Patrons stood by, their frustration palpable, with a few visibly expressing their discontent. A young woman at the register appeared flustered as she attempted to process the orders. Michael approached the counter with purpose. "Hi, I'm here for the trainee shift." The manager, a stocky man with a permanent scowl, barely acknowledged him. "Hey Mike, just go track down Rachel. Her role is to guide your training." Michael nodded and moved toward the back, his attention drawn by a faint sound of sobbing. He turned and noticed a young woman huddled by the stockroom door, using the sleeve of her uniform to wipe her face. She endeavored to remain concealed, yet her shoulders trembled with every muted sob. Michael paused for a moment, then made his way over. "Hey, are you all right?" The woman recoiled and raised her gaze. Her eyes glowed with a crimson hue. "I'm fine," she said quickly, her voice trembling slightly as she sniffed. Michael bent down a bit to catch her eye. It appeared otherwise. She paused briefly before giving a slight shake of her head. "It's merely a rough day." Before Michael could elaborate, a piercing voice sliced through the atmosphere. "Rachel collapses. Return to your tasks promptly, or you may risk your position." Michael glanced over to find the manager casting a fierce look in her direction. Rachel brushed her brow, sprang to her feet, and dashed to the front. The manager, identified by his name tag as Todd, cast a glance at Michael. "Are you here to focus on your tasks or to keep an eye on things?" Michael managed to put on a smile. "I'm in the process of familiarizing myself with my colleagues." Todd let out an exasperated sigh. "Come along with me. I have no patience for those who lack ambition." Michael trailed behind, his thoughts swirling in a chaotic dance. What caused Rachel to cry? And what made Todd sound so aggressive? There was an unmistakable sense of unease in the air. Michael trailed behind Todd to the rear of the store, maintaining a calm facade as his thoughts raced with intensity. The atmosphere was charged, and Todd's words to Rachel left him feeling uneasy. He had established this company with the belief that employees deserved to feel appreciated. Yet now he found himself in a store where anxiety appeared to reign supreme. Todd skipped the formalities and jumped right in. He gestured toward a pile of inventory boxes positioned close to the storage shelves. "Today you'll be replenishing the shelves. Be efficient and ensure the order is handled correctly. If you disrupt the rhythm, I will be informed." Michael nodded, maintaining a relaxed tone. "Understood?" Todd offered little more than a fleeting glance before turning away. Michael took a deep breath, then focused on the task before him. He began the process of unpacking the boxes, arranging the items on the shelves in accordance with the store's established system. While he toiled, he absorbed the sounds around him. The dialogues surrounding him were terse and measured. When Todd was absent, employees whispered among themselves, but in his presence, they fell silent or responded with terse, one-word answers. He observed the way they recoiled ever so slightly at his commanding tone. or how their eyes met with unspoken irritation, yet silence prevailed among them. After approximately an hour, Rachel walked past the stockroom, balancing a tray filled with returned items. Upon spotting Michael, she paused briefly, then gave a faint smile. "How is your first day unfolding?" she inquired, her tone courteous yet detached. Michael gave a slight shrug. "Still figuring things out. How are you holding up?" Rachel's smile wavered. She cast her eyes toward the front of the store, where Todd engaged in conversation with another employee. "Indeed, it's been quite a hectic day." Michael sensed that she was concealing something, yet he chose not to press her. Instead, he pointed to the shelf he was arranging. "It's always so chaotic," Rachel sighed, softening her tone. "Recently, it seems we are consistently understaffed due to ongoing employee turnover. Furthermore, indeed, you've witnessed Todd's behavior," Michael acknowledged. "Indeed, he possesses a commanding approach to management," Rachel remarked with a dry chuckle. "That's certainly a perspective." Just as Michael was about to continue, Todd's voice cut through the air. "Rachel, what are you up to back there? Do you really believe I'm compensating you for idle conversation?" Rachel tensed up. "I found myself, return to the front before I document this." Rachel tightened her jaw, gave a quick nod, and rushed away in silence. Michael observed her departure, a sense of frustration swelling within him. He had encountered demanding leaders in the past, but Todd was in a league of his own. His leadership lacked a foundation in efficiency or discipline. It stemmed from fear. Employees lacked motivation. They felt a sense of intimidation. As the hours unfolded, Michael took in an increasing array of details. He observed Todd brushing off a customer's concern regarding overcharging, suggesting that they likely misread the price tag. He noticed how staff refrained from seeking clarification, fearful of facing reprimand. He even witnessed Todd claiming credit for a suggestion made by an employee regarding the reorganization of the stockroom. However, the defining moment for Michael occurred near the conclusion of his shift. In her haste to assist a customer, Rachel inadvertently sent a bottle tumbling from the display. It fell to the ground and skidded beneath a shelf, intact. She swiftly leaned down to retrieve it, but Todd was already present. "What on earth is the matter with you?" he snapped. Rachel flinched at the thought of not being able to walk straight without making a mistake. "Apologies won't repair my store," Todd interjected. "It seems you've had quite a few slip-ups this week. Perhaps it's time to consider adjusting your hours. Perhaps this will serve as a lesson to you," as Rachel's complexion drained of color. "Please don't," Todd snorted. "Then gather yourself." Rachel swallowed hard, nodded, and turned away, her hands trembling as she adjusted the display. Michael's hands tightened into fists. He had witnessed more than enough. This was not merely poor management. It was a form of abuse occurring within his establishment. He inhaled deeply, striving to maintain his composure. He needed to approach this with care. If he were to lose his temper now, Todd would likely refute all accusations, leaving the employees too intimidated to voice their concerns. No, he had to approach this with careful planning. He completed the shift, cataloging in his mind all that he had observed. As the store's lights dimmed and the doors locked for the night, he took off his glasses, tousled his hair, and walked over to Todd, his demeanor steady and inscrutable. "We must have a conversation," he stated. Todd hardly lifted his gaze from his clipboard. "About what?" Michael exhaled, then locked eyes with him directly. "Regarding my ownership of this company." Todd blinked, a look of bewilderment crossing his features before hardening into a frown. "What are you referring to?" Michael stepped forward, his voice unwavering yet resolute. "My name is Michael Carter, and I hold the position of founder and CEO of this company." He retrieved his wallet, deftly opening it to reveal his identification. "I've devoted the whole day to observing your authoritative management of this store." Todd's cheeks flushed with color, his gaze flitting anxiously around the deserted store, searching for a way out. "Is this some kind of joke?" he scoffed. "So, you've been here all day just to keep an eye on us?" Michael said, folding his arms. "I did precisely that. What I witnessed was simply intolerable." A taut stillness lingered in the air between them. Michael observed the gears shifting in Todd's mind, desperately seeking a method to manipulate the circumstances to his advantage. Then, as expected, Todd scoffed and crossed his arms. I maintain strict control over everything. Perhaps my approach isn't to your taste, but this shop achieves its targets. Every day, we encounter unmotivated employees and demanding customers. If I didn't have resilience, nothing would be accomplished. Michael regarded him with a lack of enthusiasm. Todd shrugged, attempting to appear indifferent, but Michael noticed the beads of sweat beginning to gather at his temples. Individuals require structure. They make mistakes, I set them right. That's the way reality operates. Michael exhaled slowly, his patience beginning to fray. Discipline is essential, but there's a fine line between that and making your employees feel humiliated or intimidated. I observed you scold Rachel for a small error. I observed you claim recognition for another person's concept. I observed you brush off a customer complaint as if it were merely a nuisance. That doesn't exemplify true leadership. This harassment. Todd's jaw clenched. With all due respect, you aren't part of this environment, so you may not fully understand the challenges I face. These employees need to build resilience. If they find it too challenging, they are free to go. A multitude of individuals are in search of employment. Michael felt a knot in his stomach at the overwhelming arrogance. He established this company with the conviction that employees ought to feel respected and valued. And here was one of his managers candidly acknowledging that he viewed them as expendable. He shook his head in disbelief. You couldn't be more mistaken. Employees don't abandon unsatisfactory positions. They abandon poor leaders, Todd scoffed. So what keeps this store in business? Michael's gaze sharpened. Because individuals like Rachel and the rest of the team are managing to keep things afloat in spite of you, not due to your influence. Todd fell silent, yet Michael had more to say. A climate of apprehension has been established. Your belief in your strength as a leader may actually be fostering resentment among your employees. It instills a sense of fear in them, a fear of voicing their thoughts, a fear of erring, a fear of acquiring knowledge. What's the most frustrating aspect? It seems you have no concern at all. Todd shifted uneasily, yet his pride compelled him to stand firm. If my approach doesn't meet your expectations, then go ahead and let me go. But don't just stand here and pretend that anyone else could handle this role more effectively. People like me are essential for keeping everything in motion. Michael's voice carried an icy edge. Negative. I seek individuals who uplift others rather than diminish them. Todd began to voice his disagreement, but Michael interrupted him. Your time here is complete. In effect, right away. Todd's face flushed a deep, unsightly crimson. Surely you jest. Michael stood firm. I exist. Your services are no longer required. Declutter your belongings. For a brief instant, Todd appeared as though he might object, but then he let out a derisive laugh, shaking his head in disbelief. All right, your misfortune. Without uttering another syllable, he charged toward the back office. Michael took a deep breath, centering himself before facing the front of the store. The remaining employees hovered near the registers, casting cautious looks at one another. Rachel stood among them, her arms crossed firmly, as if preparing herself for yet another wave of disappointing news. Michael moved closer, his voice gentler this time. I understand this may come as a surprise, and I recognize the challenges you've all faced. Rachel took a breath, her voice soft yet unwavering. Indeed, you truly possess the company, Michael acknowledged. I certainly do. He surveyed the other members of the team. I arrived with the intention of witnessing the events directly, and what I observed was unacceptable. It is unacceptable for anyone to endure such circumstances in the workplace. A moment of quiet lingered before a young man by the stockroom faltered, contemplating his words before he finally spoke. Therefore, what comes next? Michael adjusted his stance. Initially, I would like to listen to each of you, every single one. He waved his hand in the direction of the break room. Let's have a conversation. The staff shared bewildered looks, yet gradually they made their way inside after him. As they got comfortable, Michael leaned against the counter, maintaining a stance that was both open and inviting. Please be straightforward with me. What has been happening here? After a prolonged silence, Rachel finally inhaled deeply, breaking the stillness. She acknowledged that it had been difficult for quite a while. Todd would lash out at us over the tiniest matters. He would alter the schedules at the last moment and then hold us responsible if we were unable to cover a shift. He had a way of making us feel inadequate, regardless of the effort we put in. A fellow worker, a man in his late 20s, acknowledged with a nod, and he had warned that he would reduce hours if we voiced any complaints. Individuals leave frequently due to his influence. Michael absorbed each tale, his irritation growing with every narrative shared. It was more than simply a poor manager. The atmosphere was poisonous, having been permitted to thrive unchecked. He inquired, wondering why no one had come forward to report him. Rachel emitted a sardonic chuckle. To whom? The district manager seldom makes an appearance. Todd consistently managed to shield himself from any repercussions. Michael tightened his jaw. That responsibility lay with him. He had placed his confidence in his district managers to identify these problems, but it was evident that the system had let him down. He let out a breath, then locked eyes with them. That transformation begins now. The staff gazed at him, doubt still evident in their faces. I will be appointing a new store manager without delay. A person who understands the importance of guiding others with dignity. Today marks the beginning of my open-door policy. If you ever feel wronged, you will have a direct connection to senior management. Rachel blinked, determined to no longer be overlooked. Michael nodded in agreement. I am committed to making this right. It begins with ensuring that you feel secure in your work environment. Gradually, the atmosphere in the room relaxed. The employees exchanged glances, and for the first time that day, Michael noticed a subtle change in their expressions, a flicker of hope emerging. Rachel exhaled softly, a sincere smile blossoming on her face. Thank you, Michael offered a slight nod. Thank you for your patience and for voicing your thoughts. He stood tall. Transformations are on the horizon. Rest assured, I will ensure that happens. As he surveyed the room, he realized this was more than merely repairing a single store. The focus was on ensuring that such a situation would not arise again. This time, he would be right in the thick of it. The employees remained in the break room long after Michael had finished speaking, an atmosphere of uncertainty hanging around them. They had never experienced being listened to in such a way before. Some of them appeared cautious, as if anticipating the moment when the assurances would dissolve, when everything would revert to its former state. Michael could perceive it in their gaze. The language fell short. Action was essential. He looked at Rachel, the one who had bravely spoken first, the one who had weathered Todd's darkest times and continued to persevere. Rachel, could you spare a moment? Her expression was one of surprise, yet she nodded in agreement. The remaining staff gradually made their way out, whispering to one another as they headed back to the front of the store. Michael held his silence until they found themselves in solitude. Then he began to speak. I have a question for you. Rachel crossed her arms, wary. All right, you've been around for some time now. You're familiar with the operations of the store, understanding what is effective and what falls short. Michael rested against the counter, observing her intently. I'm looking for a reliable partner to assist me in revitalizing the culture here. A person who truly grasps the challenges this team has faced. Rachel furrowed her brow, contemplating the direction of his thoughts. I would like to extend a promotion to you, Michael stated plainly. Rachel's eyes grew large with surprise. Excuse me? Michael clarified his role as assistant manager. I'm hiring a new store manager, but it's essential to find someone familiar with this team, someone who can connect them with leadership effectively. A person capable of ensuring that no one like Todd ever manages to ruin this place again. Rachel emitted a brief, incredulous chuckle. I'm not sure if I am, she paused, shaking her head. I suppose I've never truly considered the idea of advancing. I simply aimed to get through my shifts. Michael gave a slight nod. I understand that. However, I have observed your process. Your concern for this place remains steadfast, despite all the reasons you had to turn away. That's the type of guidance I seek. Rachel paused, her gaze drifting to the ground. What if I'm not good at it? Michael offered a faint smile. What if you are? Rachel breathed out, rubbing her arms. I simply don't wish to resemble Todd. Michael stated with conviction, you won't be, since you have a clear grasp of what leadership is not. That surpasses anything Todd ever accomplished. She remained silent for an extended pause. At last she gave a nod. All right, Michael stood up straight. Excellent. You start immediately. Rachel blinked. In an instant, Michael let out a soft chuckle. In an instant, a subtle, tentative smile played at the corners of her mouth. At last, Michael sensed that he was truly advancing for the first time that day. The following morning, Michael made his way back to the store, this time unmasked. The staff were clearly taken aback when he entered, now unmistakably identified as the CEO they had unwittingly collaborated with just the previous day. He was efficient with his time. He assembled the whole team prior to the store's opening, speaking to them with the same straightforwardness he had demonstrated the previous night. I truly meant what I said, he conveyed to them. Transformation begins now. The new store manager arrived that afternoon, a woman named Lisa, whom Michael had personally vetted. She was known for her ability to lead high-performing teams while maintaining a positive atmosphere. Exactly the type of leader this store was in dire need of. Michael made a personal introduction, emphasizing that she had his complete confidence. Throughout the day, he lingered in the shadows, observing quietly. The atmosphere in the store was beginning to change. Employees appeared to be more reserved, yet there was an uplifting atmosphere that had previously been absent. Rachel, embracing her new position, navigated her surroundings with a calm assurance, reaching out to her colleagues and extending her support whenever possible. As the day drew to a close, Michael felt a sense of certainty that he had chosen wisely. Before departing, he took a moment to speak with Rachel privately. How are you doing? He inquired. Rachel exhaled softly. Distinct, an intriguing alternative. She offered a faint smile. Indeed, I believe that to be the case. Michael gave a slight nod. Keep me in the loop. If something seems amiss, you can reach out to me directly. Rachel observed him intently for a prolonged moment before giving a nod of understanding. I appreciate all that you've done. Michael beamed. You deserve it. As he exited the store, a sensation washed over him that he hadn't experienced in ages. A profound, unwavering bond with the enterprise he had created. He was determined not to let that slip away once more. Michael lingered in town for a while before departing. He had planned to head back to headquarters the following morning, yet an inexplicable force kept drawing him back to the store. The issue wasn't merely a single ineffective manager. It was a flawed system that allowed Todd to function without oversight. Addressing the issue demanded more than simply letting him go. Rebuilding trust was essential, not only in the store but throughout all locations. Thus he remained. Over the course of the next 2 weeks, Michael immersed himself in the daily operations, this time stepping in openly as the CEO. He actively engaged in the work, putting in shifts, stocking shelves, managing the register, and making an effort to connect with each employee individually. He inquired about their experiences, exploring what was effective, what fell short, and what adjustments were necessary. The initial days were filled with tension. The employees appeared to remain uncertain about the reliability of his assurances. They had witnessed corporate leaders make grand proclamations in the past, only for circumstances to revert to the familiar once the spotlight dimmed. However, Michael was not merely a speaker, he was a doer. Schedules were firmly established, guaranteeing that everyone was prepared and not surprised by any sudden alterations. The pay discrepancies that Todd had overlooked were rectified. The break room, previously overlooked and hardly operational, has been tidied up and equipped with necessary supplies. Minor details, yet they conveyed a significant message. There was a sense of concern. Rachel, entering her new position as assistant manager, felt a wave of uncertainty initially, yet swiftly demonstrated her innate leadership abilities. She wasn't boisterous or domineering. She guided through her attentive ear. Staff members who had previously remained silent began approaching her with their issues, and she handled them promptly, frequently before Michael needed to intervene. One evening, after the doors had been locked for the night, she made her way to him as he meticulously examined the inventory in the back room. "You truly meant it," she stated plainly. Michael lifted his gaze. "What do you mean?" "That circumstances would evolve." With her arms crossed, she leaned casually against the stockroom door. "Initially, I found it hard to accept. I thought you would let Todd go, deliver a couple of speeches, and then vanish." Michael placed the clipboard aside and locked eyes with her. Rachel paused for a moment, then gave a slight shrug. "Now I believe you genuinely care," Michael breathed out, resting against the shelf. "I do, yet it feels unnecessary for me to have come here just to understand what was going on." "That's my shortcoming," Rachel said with a furrowed brow. "It was beyond your awareness. I ought to have," Michael amended. "I established this company with a clear vision, yet at some point, I became overly focused on growth and the metrics in reports." She paused, her gaze lingering on him as she reflected on the individuals hidden within those figures. "What occurs once you depart?" Michael valued her straightforwardness. That was the true inquiry, wasn't it? He might linger for a couple of weeks, implementing adjustments. However, if the system continued unchanged, it would merely be a question of time before another Todd fell through the gaps. He mentioned that he is reorganizing the oversight. Fresh district managers, those who genuinely engage with employees rather than merely analyzing spreadsheets. Confidential avenues for employee reporting. Regular audits not only on sales but also on work culture. Rachel raised an eyebrow. "Do you believe that will suffice?" "No," Michael confessed. "Yet it marks the beginning." She inclined her head with a measured grace. "In that case, it's quite impressive." A quietude lingered in the air, not awkward, merely contemplative. Michael surveyed the stockroom, reflecting on the countless places he had crafted throughout the years. Shops bustling with individuals, each carrying their unique battles, triumphs, and challenges. He had nearly lost track of them. That's a thing of the past. The following morning, Michael convened a meeting for the entire company, linking all store locations via a live video call. Managers, employees, and corporate staff gathered, many anticipating yet another standard corporate announcement. They were mistaken. Michael spoke without relying on a script. He shared insights drawn from his own journey, reflecting on what he had witnessed, what had previously escaped his notice, and the transformations that lay ahead. He confronted the detrimental leadership that had been permitted to thrive and asserted that it would no longer be accepted. Workers would possess clear avenues to voice concerns about mistreatment, while corporate leaders would be responsible for guaranteeing that stores prioritized not only profitability but also the well-being of their environments. Initially, there was a profound stillness. Gradually, team members began to engage with the chat feature during the video call. Messages flooded in, sharing tales of similar journeys, expressing gratitude for the transformations, and a cautious optimism that perhaps this time, things could truly be different. Michael meticulously went through each and every message. As the call concluded, he leaned back in his chair, weary yet determined. This was not the conclusion of the adventure. This was merely the start. After a span of 2 months, an email from Rachel landed in Michael's inbox. It was brief, merely a handful of lines. "The store is thriving. The lease has been exceptional. There are genuine smiles among employees now. Clients perceive the distinction. I thought you might find this interesting." Michael beamed with delight. He had created this company. At that moment, he was ensuring it was a pursuit deserving of his effort.